Before Pringles, potato chips lived in a world of chance. You opened the bag and you never really knew what was waiting inside. Some chips were whole, some were broken, some were buried under crumbs, and sometimes the bag seemed to hold almost as much air as food. That was normal. Potato chips were irregular, fragile, greasy, and difficult to control. Then Procter Gamble looked at that messy world and tried something that sounded almost backwards. Most companies make the product first and then design a package around it. Pringles moved in the opposite direction. They did not simply create a better bag for potato chips. They created a chip that could belong inside a very different kind of package. Pringles were not chips placed into a can, they were chips engineered around the can. And to make that idea work, they had to break almost everything people expected a real potato chip to be. This is turning point. One decision, one shift, a product, a company, or a habit changed forever. The first mistake would be to think this story begins with flavor. It does not. It begins with a problem that was sitting inside every ordinary bag of chips. A normal chip starts as a slice of potato, and that sounds simple until you try to build a reliable mass product from it. Each slice has its own shape. Some bend, some break, some survive the trip, while others reach the customer as crumbs. That kind of randomness can feel natural, but it becomes a problem when you want control. You cannot build a perfect stack from random pieces. You cannot make a tube useful if the chip inside refuses to behave. And you cannot promise the same experience again and again if every chip is different. This is where Pringles becomes more than a snack story. It becomes a product design story. P&G was not only asking how to make another potato chip. The deeper question was, stranger. What would a chip look like if it had to fit the package perfectly? The problem was not the can. The problem was that an ordinary potato chip could not live inside that can. So if they wanted the stack, the shape, and the package to work together, they had to give up the most obvious starting point, the ordinary slice of potato. That is what makes Pringles feel so unusual. They were not built around the romantic image of a potato being sliced and dropped into oil. They were built around repeatability. Instead of accepting the natural irregularity of a potato slice, the product moved toward a formed potato-based crisp. The curve was not left to chance. The stack was not a lucky result at the end of production. The chip had to be shaped so the next chip could sit on top of it, and the next one could sit beneath it. This changed the order of thinking. The package was no longer just a container that came after the food. It became part of the product logic from the beginning. Pringles did not try to fix the chaos of potato chips at the end of the process. They removed much of that chaos at the start. They were not trying to make the most natural chip. They were trying to make the most controllable chip. But when food becomes that controlled, it creates a new danger. It can start to feel less like food and more like an object. The shape solved a technical problem, but it also created something more powerful: memory. A Pringles crisp does not look like it came from a bag by accident. It looks intentional. The curve is strange enough to notice, but simple enough to remember. It belongs to the hand, to the stack, and to the tube. That matters because in mass products, recognition can be almost as valuable as flavor. A person can forget a random chip from the bottom of a bag, It is harder to forget a shape that repeats every time you open the can. Pringles turned form into identity. The crisp was not only something you ate, it was something you recognized instantly, even before the first bite. It feels less like a broken fragment from a bag and more like a shape made for the hand, the can, and the first bite. But the shape was only half of the idea. The other half was standing on the store shelf, tall, strange, and impossible to confuse with a normal bag. The Pringles can was not just packaging, it was a business decision that customers could see from across the aisle. A normal chip bag competes with other bags. It lies on the shelf full of air, color, and noise. It has to fight for attention through graphics, size, and flavor names. But the Pringles tube changed the silhouette. It stood upright. It protected the stack. It made the product feel organized before the lid was even opened. That gave Pringles a different kind of shelf presence. The package was not hiding the product problem. It was solving it. And it worked because the chips had already been designed to belong inside it. The package was not just holding the product, it was explaining the product. But being different is not always a strength at first. Sometimes it creates the most dangerous question a new product can face. What exactly is this? Pringles were unusual enough to create doubt. They did not look like ordinary potato chips. They did not feel like ordinary potato chips. They did not even arrive in the same kind of package. That made the product memorable, but it also made it risky. When a snack is too different, people may notice it for the wrong reason. They may ask whether it is real enough, familiar enough, or natural enough to trust. This is one of the quiet tensions in the Pringles story. The same control that made the product scalable also made it strange. The same shape that made it stackable also made it feel less like a random slice of potato. And for a company, that is a difficult place to stand. If you are too familiar, nobody notices you. If you are too strange, people may not accept you. Pringles had to become different enough to matter, but familiar enough to be eaten. Slowly, the thing that first made Pringles strange began to become the thing ordinary chips could not copy. A strong product does not only live in the mouth, it lives in the small actions around it. With Pringles, the experience begins before the first bite. You remove the lid. You look down into the tube. You see the stack waiting there in order. Then you reach in and pull out the first crisp, almost exactly like the next one beneath it. That simple action became part of the product. It made Pringles feel less messy than a bag and more controlled than a handful of broken pieces. There was a little ritual in it, and rituals are powerful because they are easy to repeat. The customer was not only buying salt, crunch, and flavor. The customer was buying a familiar motion. Open the can, see the stack, take one crisp, then reach back in for another. That is how a product becomes habit. Not through one dramatic moment, but through a repeated experience that feels the same every time. Pringles turned eating chips into a small, repeatable ritual. But the real lesson is bigger than the ritual. It is what happens when a company changes the order of thinking. The most important thing about Pringles is not that they came in a can. A can alone would not have changed much. If the chip inside had still been random, broken, and impossible to stack, the package would have been just another container. The real turn was deeper. Pringles changed the relationship between product and package. Instead of accepting the chip as nature gave it, They redesigned the chip for the system they wanted to build. The shape served the stack. The stack made the tube useful. The tube protected the product and changed its presence on the shelf. And the shelf presence helped turn a strange snack into something people could recognize immediately. That is why this story matters. It shows how a company can look at an ordinary category and find the hidden weakness everyone else has learned to accept. Broken chips were normal. Air in the bag was normal. Random shapes were normal. But Pringles treated normal as a design problem. They did not make potato chips more natural. They made the experience more controlled, more stackable, more recognizable, and easier to repeat. In the world of mass products, that strange idea was not a weakness. It became the advantage. They did not design a can for chips. They designed chips for a can. And that backwards idea became the turning point. If you want to see more stories about the strange decisions that change the products around us, subscribe to Turning Point. The next ordinary object may have a much stranger story than it seems.